At the NNPC's P&L, we're saying that they're actually reporting a loss. Isn't that right?
Of course, as it should. And I think that's been transparent.
So in other words, it's actually taking on more than it can actually shoulder. Well, as a company.
If you ask my own view today, yes. I think I've always pushed that the private marketers should get involved in this whole process. However, with schematic, it's either you move on and say, okay, look, we're going to put some process in place whereby some of that subsidy returns back, because that's the reality of today. And hopefully some level of efficiency in private market importation would then reduce, hopefully, the level of subsidy or the level of under recovery that you see that are hitting the system. Because private marketers, whether we like it or not, are going to be more efficient than NNPC because they're not taking the sort of size and volume that NNPC is taking on the team. One individual or one company bringing in products for the entire country is a critical issue.
Have you been able to ascertain today how much petrol, for instance, because that's the most widely consumed product that Nigerians actually consume? There's been some controversy over it. Have you been able to say?
No, we've not been able to resolve that. There's a process of reconciliation on that. The data that I had at the time that I did this job directly was that we started from about 52 million liters a day in 2015. And one of the things that the president questioned then was, how could we consume this much? And so we set up a process to try and look into that. And one of the things we did was first look at the contracting models, look at the distribution dynamics, and then obviously look at the pricing at the time, sometime in early 2016. And once we did that, the data that we had was that figure reduced to about 35 million liters, showing clearly that there was a lot of surplusage that was going on in the whole distribution. The figures that I get today from NNPC is that figure has ramped up substantially. And I think they're talking of figures in the neighborhood of back to about 50 million liters.
Or 60. Some governors say they're telling them 60.
Well, part of the explanation is, look, that there is a lot of seepages going on outside the border. My argument has been that the sheer, if in fact our figures of 35/38 at the time are right, and that's still being looked at again, then you're looking at an additional additive of close to about 20 million liters. 20 million liters going through Nigeria borders would be crazy, completely. I wonder how many trucks will actually convey that on a daily basis. So we're beginning to look again at the marine aspect. Are all these products actually fully coming in? Has Nigeria population, driving population increased to such a level that you can consume that? Or were the data that we had in 2015, early 2016, not sufficiently robust to have captured certain individuals who were involved in the trade but were not captured in that data? So the president is instructed that the team be set up, and that team has been set up and is looking at that. I think that within the next 60 days, we'll have a clear picture of...
Just a moment. I'm just wondering, why do we seem to be shying away from the word subsidy? Because whether or not we accept, it's still in existence. When the price of petrol was increased to try and reflect what the markets were saying, we were still very careful not to say that we had done full deregulation in the sector. It meant that government wanted to retain some form of control on the prices. But so far, so good. It would seem that government is even reluctant to admit that it is currently subsidizing the price of fuel. Why is government reluctant to have that conversation?
No, I don't think the government is reluctant to have that conversation. I've not seen any forum in which government said, look, the landing price isn't higher than the sale price. So that's out there in the space. Now, I give you an example. When I came in, people were talking about swap contracts. One of the first things I did was to change that terminology, because swap had become so known internationally and connoted with all kinds of negativism. We then came up with the direct sale and direct purchase, the DSDP program. Terminologies sometimes are necessary to manage political situations, but it doesn't take away from what the realities are. And let's also be honest about this. Because, you know, when I sit in interviews, everybody keeps saying, oh, why is government shy about doing this? Oh, why is government not dealing with the issue? It's taken about 5 or 6 regimes in this country to deal with this issue. And it's some Nigerians like you and I who hit the street once the pump prices go up. And it's the same intelligentsias who will tell you all kinds of analysis of why it should not go up, even when the facts are clear.
But it's something that the government has benefited from. It's also something that it's heavily criticized.
Well, not just the government. The government and the people of Nigeria. I mean, government is not something abstract. It comprises of people, it comprises of services to people. The point I'm making is this. There are clear solutions to this issue. One clear solution: let the private sector work. let the pricing model work. When I led the price movement in 2016, I think, early 2016, one of the components was a modulating pricing system, which is that even though at the time the 145 number sorted out the issues at hand, and so for the first time brought sanity and brought availability of product into the country with ease, there was a need to keep tracking that, because at the time that we did this, price of oil was, if I'm not mistaken, about $45 a barrel. And it was clear that if one is pushing in OPEC to try and see that resource go up in pricing, there will be an impact also on the downstream. And so there was a need for a modulation. So we created a modulation philosophy. But the truth was that given all the attacks, given all the strikes that went on, just sheer managing, quite frankly, the impact of the 145 on the citizenry was big enough. I think one of the things that is motivated, because sometimes, when you're outside and you look at this, you're wondering, why don't you just draw the line on this and deal with it? And the solutions are very clear. But for a political leader, you've also got to look at what are your followers saying? How is it impacting on food prices? How is it impacting on people who haven't earned probably substantial increase in salaries over a period of time? I imagine that those emotions are influencing the president, who is also Minister for Petroleum. So it is not for want of knowledge of what to do. And what we're trying to do is to say, can we bring back the refineries quick enough?
Which is what I was going to ask you.
Because unless you do, no matter how much you rail on these prices, no matter how much loose ends you leave on the pricing equation, a movement on pricing internationally will affect it. A lack of sufficiency in storage here will affect the pricing.
Which is what we're going to ask you. Okay. I mean, the refineries, you've talked about how initially the thought was to privatize them, but it was seen that changed, and the government said we will try and maintain them, we will turn them around. How much production, how much of the petrol, of the fuel that we're currently consuming in the country comes from our own local refineries? No, very, very, very insignificant portion. I would say about 15%. Why is that still?
Now, we met the refineries in a zero performance level when we came in, and we had two alternatives. One was obviously what had been tried before, try and sell the refineries.